South Africa now plans to crack down on any companies that hire illegal migrants. However, looking at the timing of this event in the wake of the anti-foreigner attacks, will this actually solve the underlying problem that have led to this repeated flare-up time and time again of xenophobic violence in South Africa? We'll be in Johannesburg to get some answers on that particular matter a little later on. But right now, let's give you a brief sneak preview of what's coming up in global business. The growing ties between Africa and Asia are in focus in Jakarta. And move over West Africa, chocolate entrepreneurs are emerging in East Africa too. Now let's start in South Africa, where resentment over persistently high unemployment and the factually erroneous belief that foreign workers are stealing South African jobs are being seen as major causes, if not contributing factors, to the periodic xenophobia that emerges in that country. Amidst the latest wave of violence in which at least 7 people have died, South Africa's government now plans to crack down on any companies that hire undocumented foreigners. As Angelo Coppola reports, however, the issue is a lot more complex.
It appears that the government wants to tackle a part of the problem by increasing oversight over South African companies who are employing undocumented foreigners. Some analysts put the number of foreigners living in South Africa at around 3.5 million. Add to that the 4.5 million people who are unemployed, and you have a powder keg ready to explode. It's also been suggested that the country's labour legislation is the problem.
If we scrapped the minimum wage and we relaxed the dismissal protections, every South African who wanted a job could find one as easily as these undocumented migrants.
So to put a plaster on, to say we're going to go into these companies and root out who's working illegally there, it's really not solving the bigger issue, because you might get rid of that person, but he or she will just be replaced by another person. Let's rather make it easy for them to bring their skills here and to apply for, be it asylum or be it a working permit, but make it easy for them to be legal.
The solution, they say, appears fairly straightforward.
There's no question that government policy around immigration and labour markets is the prime mover here.
Really should happen is to look at the immigration policy and to look at a one-stop system for people to come in, apply, get a working permit and work for whoever wants to employ them, because that's good for the economy and it's good for business, it's good for South Africa's relations with other countries.
The migration issue and the unemployment issue in South Africa are closely related. They're absolutely tightly linked, because it's very simple. People can't work in South Africa unless they're working to a minimum wage, which leaves a gap open for foreigners coming in to work. And companies looking to employ people and keep their costs down are obviously going to move towards those who are offering their labour at a lower rate. It's not simple, it is complicated. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Johannesburg.
Now, the first group of Malawians fleeing anti-foreigner violence in South Africa arrived in the southern city of Blantyre aboard 6 buses. Xenophobic attacks have swept over South Africa over at least the last fortnight. This is the country's worst xenophobic violence since 2008, when about 67 people were killed. The latest attacks started in Durban. 2 Malawians are said to have been killed. Thousands of immigrants from countries like Zimbabwe, Malawi, Zambia and Mozambique have fled to refugee camps. There are over 3,000 Malawians still waiting to be repatriated, according to authorities in Blantyre.
We are going to work around the clock with our counterparts. The High Commission in South Africa is working tirelessly to make sure that we bring these people back home safe and alive.
For the field now, Zimbabwe's head of state Robert Gabriel Mugabe is in Jakarta for the Asian African Conference. 34 heads of state are attending the event, which aims to strengthen cooperation between Asian and African countries. This year's event will also commemorate the 60th anniversary of the conference, which was first held in the West Java provincial capital of Bandung. China's head of state Xi Jinping is attending the conference, as well as a host of African leaders, including the presidents of Egypt and Namibia. In our ongoing coverage of the Asia-Africa Conference in Jakarta this week, we'll be taking a look at the economic ties between Asia and Africa, using Ethiopia as our launch point. As Girum Chala reports from Addis Ababa, a lot more investment is coming into Africa, especially in health and agriculture.
The relatively young flower and horticulture sector is the fifth largest foreign revenue earner for Ethiopia, generating $245 million in 2014 alone. This is compared to $28.5 million in 2005. This vibrant sector is mainly pioneered and led by Asian investors, most of them from India. For them, business continues to boom.
Ethiopian cut flowers are known for its quality. It's because of the high altitude, especially in the region of Holeta. That's where the majority of the farms are located. So the scope for these farms are unlimited because still there are vast amount of area land which is vacant, and many foreign investors are interested to invest in Ethiopia.
130 international investors are operating in Ethiopia's horticulture sector, exporting their products to the Netherlands, Germany, Saudi Arabia, Norway, Belgium and the UAE. Many say this is an area where Asia-Ethiopia, Asia-Africa economic partnership is strongly displayed. For Ethiopia, the industry has created over 180,000 jobs so far, and 85% of that number are women.
All those products are found in our local supermarkets, and we are also exporting our products to the Middle East and to the European countries, in many countries. And our mainly products which we export is the snow beans and the sugar snaps and the chili, the Indian chilies that usually known. And the market is so far so good.
The light and medium manufacturers are the other important sectors for Asian investors to show solidarity, not only with Ethiopia, but also with the rest of Africa. Cars, shoes, cell phone apparatuses, along with others are widely manufactured here in Ethiopia by Chinese businessmen.
Ethiopia is striving to achieve national industrialization and achieve its 2025 vision to become a middle-income country. And China, for the moment, is trying to improve and readjust the economic structure. And we have a lot of priority and excessive industrial and manufacturing capacity that we want to relocate.
Businessmen from all over Asia are now coming to Africa to invest on almost all sectors, from mining to construction. Apart from strengthening Africa-Asia ties, it's also enlightening those African states which are planning to accelerate further economic growth. Analysts suggest with other states joining alongside Chinese businessmen and Indians, much more stronger ties between Asia and African states are expected in the coming 5 years. Grumtala CCTV, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Let's make a quick run through equity markets here for you. Red numbers right across the board, except, however, for South Africa. Some macro data coming through as well today. The central bank releasing its leading business cycle indicator. That was down 0.3% month on month. Of course, the month in question here is February. It should be interesting, however, to see exactly how this wave of xenophobic violence will affect trade and, of course, other key indicators moving forward a little later in the year. We'll be talking to a firm that creates global tech solutions right here from Africa when we come back. We'll also be telling you why cars of the future could be a lot more smaller and greener. Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies. We help you make sense of the fast changing African business landscape. We take you where the business is happening.
Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
This is the first year that Africa will have more foreign direct investment than aid. And it's like the tipping point in terms of changing the way the continent is perceived. And I think this summit very much responds to that call. Now, whether it can materialize what is being announced is something that we'll have to check and see whether it happens.
Welcome back. Technobrain was ranked second among the 50 fastest growing tech firms in Africa. And that was in the 2014 edition of Deloitte Technology Africa Fast 50. The company's grown by 621% between 2009 and 2014. Technobrain does offer various software solutions to governments, NGOs, private companies in 23 countries. In commenting on the ranking at the time, Group CEO Manoj Shankar told CIO magazine of the company's belief in world-class solutions being created right here in Africa. The firm has since acquired TRIPS in customs and revenue software, which is seen as the backbone of efficient revenue collection by governments right across the world. Now, in the next 4 minutes or so, we're going to essentially compare the Silicon Valley experience with the Silicon Savannah experience. Let's get you some experience from someone who's actually been in the front lines. We're talking to the CEO of Technobrain, Manoj Shankar, who's with me right now in studio. Thank you for your time this evening. Based on your decades of experience in the ICT industry, especially in Africa, where has a state-led, top-down approach to building tech industry clusters like Kenya's Konza projects ever worked? Is it even viable?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. Many governments have taken great initiatives, and I believe that government is only an enabler. And many progressive governments have proven that if they build infrastructure, if they're creating an enabling environment, it does attract investments, and especially from the tech firms. Talking very specific about Konza City, I think it is a great plan. But unfortunately, we haven't really seen action on the ground, and I feel Kenya is in a unique position. And if they really translate this dream of Konza City into reality, it's going to work.
Indeed. Give us a sense of, from your perspective, given again your experience in working in East Africa, you've cited governance as a key concern for your operations in East Africa. Why?
Well, when I quoted that there is a need for a better governance in East Africa and governance in Africa as a large, what I meant is that, for example, procurement. Procurement is a process which is still a long way to go in East Africa and in the rest of the sub-Saharan Africa. And I strongly believe that the government can do a lot of things about it. And if they introduce things like e-procurement, make the procurement very transparent, and a very inclusive process, it will definitely help companies like Technobrain. And also, I feel that being a local African company, there has to be some incentive given for a company like us to produce local content, and that's what we are doing today.
Indeed, and of course in the same vein you also established that, or rather you made it fairly clear that you admire what Rwanda has been doing. Let's get back to the argument that you've made, however, about automation of core state services. To some extent, won't that tackle or at least reduce the governance problem right across the region?
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. I think many countries have proven that if they remove the middleman from various government services, it becomes much more efficient to service the citizens. There are several government institutions, which provide services to the citizens. And I strongly believe that if you automate many of such processes, for example, if you want to apply for a driving license or a passport issuance system, or you want to pay electricity bill, you really don't need a middleman today. You can go online and do it, and that's what the rest of the world is doing it. I appreciate the initiative taken by the government here, the Huduma project. It's an initial phase, and I believe that if they really roll out this project, it's going to really help Kenya.
Indeed. Let's talk about the problem, to put it mildly, of being an African company pitching for business outside the continent. Is there a perception penalty that the firm has to overcome if you're pitching for business, say, in Europe or Asia or the Americas?
Absolutely. I think today, if you say that you are a large multinational company from Africa, people still look at you with a little bit of suspicious, because I guess we are still not known to produce global world-class companies. And Technobrain does fight this kind of perception, especially when we want to do business in US and the rest of the Asia. And in order to address this problem, we are taking several steps. We want to be a world-class company. Today we are probably the only company in sub-Saharan Africa which has been CMM level 5 assessed. That really ranks us among the best companies in the world in developing software. There are several such steps which we are doing. We are doing today business in US. We have acquired a company, a product in UK. These are the steps which you are taking, and I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, companies like Technobrain will be definitely known globally.
Indeed. Let's focus on one nitty-gritty aspect of your clients abroad: data protection laws. In East Africa, for example, our legal system here is well behind the curve in terms of data protection, or at least dealing with cybercrime. Isn't this a competitive disadvantage for you?
Absolutely. I strongly feel that, again, this is an area where government should really push it hard. Today there are a lot of outsourcing business which we are trying to get it from Western countries. Because of a lack of a very strong data protection law, we cannot get those businesses, and there is no other alternative but to introduce that bill and also enforce it. It brings in a lot of confidence in various buyers worldwide, and it also helps to bring in investment in the technology sector. I wish especially the Kenyan government really speed track this. It's not really helping company like us.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for your input tonight. Manoj Shankar is the CEO of Technobrain. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, B2B business focusing on ICT and, of course, 100% African. Now, let's talk about cars. 1,000 of them were on display at the opening of the 16th Shanghai International Auto Show. More than 100 of those models were actually making their world debut. That includes the Audi A3 Sportback e-tron. It's a plug-in hybrid, basically. The company says a lot more compact cars will play an important role in its development strategy this year. Timothy Pope went to find out why.
All of the world's premium brand car makers bring their latest models to the exhibition, trying to win the hearts and the wallets of the audience. Audi, for example, has 11 new cars at its booth, including the A3 Sportback e-tron, a plug-in hybrid of the brand's popular small models. Audi says smaller cars will play an important role in the company's development strategy this year.
Normally what we see, based on our experience in Europe, is that the compact segment is a kind of a gateway to the brand. It's a way for the brand to conquest younger customers that will upgrade on other cars.
Sales figures of high-end cars in China have been slowing. Consulting firm IHS Automotive reports that the growth rate was 22% last year, almost half of what it was in 2011. To attract a wider customer base, premium car makers are extending their portfolio and making smaller versions of their classic models, and that appears to be working. Sales volumes of the smaller BMW X1 and Audi Q3 both had year-on-year growth of over 100% last year. Porsche's smaller SUV, the Macan, is very popular in China, and it's priced beginning at 550,000 yuan. Porsche is finding the demand from younger drivers is very high.
For example, in the US, our average customer is a little bit more than 50 years old, to a Chinese customer on average, which is between his early 30s and his late 30s.
However, there are other super luxury car makers that have continued to grow steadily without downsizing their cars. Last year, sales volume at Maserati grew almost 150% to 9,400 cars in China. An industry analyst explains why this is the case.
For the mainstream brands, people are more sensitive to their personal economic situation and the visibility they have for the future, which is which is not the case at all for the premium super luxury car. The people who are wealthy enough to acquire this kind of car, they are not really sensitive to the economic slowdown.
Other super luxury cars are also on show, including Lamborghini, Ferrari and Bentley. Timothy Pope, ICS for CCTV, Shanghai.
Now, of course, the events in South Africa are cause for concern. Two key events that are worth paying attention to earlier on today. One, the army was deployed in Alexandra, and at the same time, the South African government announced its intent to crack down on businesses that are hiring any illegal migrants in the country. Let's head over to Johannesburg, where Julie Shire is live right now. Julie, this plan to tighten immigration controls and to weed out illegal migrants hired by companies, why do this now, especially smack in the middle of a wave of xenophobic violence?
Well, Rama, it's expected that South Africa has about 2 million illegal residents living in South Africa and working in South Africa. So obviously the South African government is very worried about that high number, and possibly this number is even greater. So the fact of the matter is that they're going to try to tighten these immigration laws so that the people who are working under those conditions, who are not legal, will have a more difficult time obviously coming in, and this will obviously affect things that were happening in Home Affairs. It's believed that many people were going there and bribing officials and trying to get their visas and their permits, and they were having the possibility to stay illegally in the country. So obviously the South African government is tackling this because of these xenophobic attacks. It has many people, many foreign nationals that come to South Africa looking for a better life, thinking that they're going to find that haven here. But unfortunately, as we've seen for the past few days, they did not find this. So obviously, the South African government is going to try to tackle this, and they're going to look into ways of bringing in the good development and the good economy and the higher skills, and possibly look more at foreign investment and try to get that foreign investment to look at South Africa with a better light than it has been sending out now to the rest of the world.
Indeed. Let's dig into the data here, though. Aren't migrants in South Africa on a net basis job creators and investors? What do the statistics say?
Well, that's exactly it, Rama. There are statistics that indicate that many foreign nationals who come to this country do provide South Africans not only with jobs, but that they contribute for jobs and paying rent and VAT and providing affordable and convenient goods. So this is an important thing that we must remember. There were reports, and I've even spoken to this Zimbabwean who has at least more than 100 South Africans that he employs, and so he contributes to the economy, and there are certainly many other entrepreneurs out there who do that work as well. So it is clearly a very hard time for these foreign nationals and entrepreneurs who do provide South Africa with a lot of jobs and also with a lot of income to many South Africans, Rama.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you for the update. That's Julie Shire live in Johannesburg. We will keep tabs on developing events in South Africa and bring you the latest right here on CCTV. Let's make a quick run now through commodity markets and see what's happening across the board. Coffee sales at the auction in Kenya, they're up 12% in the 6 months through to March. Some interesting numbers coming through here. The value of coffee sold, $93.2 million in total. However, keep in mind there's still a long-term trend of decline in terms of coffee output from Kenya, which produces some fantastic beans from East Africa. Entrepreneurial chocolate makers in East Africa are making a lot more value compared to their West African counterparts. We'll tell you why. Welcome back to the program. West Africa may produce roughly 3/4 of the world's cocoa supply. But if you're looking for entrepreneurial chocolate makers, you need to actually leave West Africa and head to the East Coast countries of Kenya, Tanzania and Madagascar. Susan Mongeli has that story on Grassroots tonight.
Absolute chocolate, a dream come true in Nairobi, Kenya's capital. And it's all thanks to Nahid Ahmed and his team. You won't find just any chocolate here though, but only the best. Chili-infused pralines, decadent truffles, and bars of the finest quality. Ahmed is on a mission to create Africa's own prestigious world-class artisan chocolate brand.
The cocoa that is bought from West Africa is usually taken by massive companies and taken abroad. The process of chocolate is then done there and then sold for quite an expensive amount. But today, people are getting exposed and people know what chocolate is. People are curious to know how to make chocolate.
Ahmed got his first taste of fine chocolate at culinary school in South Africa. And there's been no turning back. He's been on a mission to provide Kenyans with a luxurious alternative. He produces around 100 kilograms of chocolate a month and plans to expand. And it's certainly a hit with locals.
Yeah, you can actually get a message on the chocolate. So you can just order for a specific chocolate and then they'll deliver that specific one, the one that you want. So that's one thing I like about the chocolates. They're different, custom made.
Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly have a craving for something sweet. Susan Mongeli, CCTV.
All right then, something not so sweet. If you're Kenyan today and you've got your currency in the shilling, the dollar has actually given you quite the beating. 93.55 was the number a little earlier in trading. At some point, however, we actually went as high as 93.18, 93.90 to the American dollar. Definitely something to keep a very close eye on. Also worth looking at, Nigeria's government revenue down 21.5% in March. Why? Oil outages. And of course, where oil output goes, the Naira, of course, will certainly follow as well. Now, here's what we're working on for tomorrow's program. We'll keep our focus on developments at the Asia-Africa Summit in Jakarta, Indonesia. We'll also be looking at the process of phasing out plastic bags in Uganda. They're taking a leaf, quite frankly, out of their smaller neighbor to the west, Rwanda. But that's it for today's edition of the program. As always, we like hearing what you think about what we do around here. Global Business Africa at cctv.com is the email to use. And when we're not on air, Facebook and Twitter are your ports of call. The news continues over there 24/7. Thank you for watching. See you in 23 hours. I'm Ramanyang.